Hi there and welcome. I'm Delane and we're here today to talk with Consciousness Mercredan, which is channeled by Trance Medium Francis Evans. And today we're going to be asking Mercredan about the ideal form of love and connection. And what is the most powerful form of love? So if you like this topic and these questions, please feel free to like the video and enjoy it, and subscribe to keep updated. Feel free to add any questions or topic suggestions in the comment box for future videos. We'd love to hear from you. And shortly we'll go over to Francis and see what he has to say with Mercredan coming through. Over to you, Francis.
Welcome. And once again, it is my privilege and pleasure to come and spend these few moments of your time. Shall we say the spiritual descent into human consciousness arises as a light that shines on ignorance, the shadows that hide inside of consciousness, the shadows that pretend to be all sorts of things, that try to guide individuals and to separate. And yet the highest coming together that uplifts the spirit, that, shall we say, takes off the burdens from the heart, is connecting with others. Enough for us to begin our conversation.
Thank you, Mercredan. Lovely to be with you here again today. So we often wonder what is the most powerful form of love, and how we can individually arrive at reaching this form of love. Can you say something more to that?
We have pointed out the laws that govern universal structures. The law of paradox that leads to the law of polarities, of opposites. So shall we say that when one takes on a certain perspective, a certain role that separates one from its opposite, one becomes polarized. So the greatest attraction then is to integrate. That is for the spiritual aspects of self to want to merge together, to attain its rightful place, shall we say, within consciousness, to let go of divisions. And yet when one merges with the opposite, one arises into the paradox, and one has to resolve that set of opposites. One has to recognize connection that is binding together, also means letting go. One has to merge together as one unit, as to connect at the individual sensitivity. One loses one's sense of selfhood to become one with the other. Does this shine some light, because it brings us to your next question.
Yes, it does. So how can we practice in our meditations amongst all our disturbances and distractions?
The paradox is to discover who one is. In other words, at the fundamental species level, one chooses masculine or feminine. And yet, how one perceives that is to perceive oneself as not in the other one's shoes, rather than to discover what is it within myself. You understand, always the storyline is from one's individual perspective. One is creating the experience of separation. One has chosen this role, even though it is but a dream. One dreams oneself into masculine or feminine, and then one adopts how one is supposed to operate from within the social fields of influence. One either buys it or rejects it, but either way, it is influenced by the conditions that one finds oneself in, whether it is in which place on the planet and within which conditions that operates within. So the fundamentals of binding is to recognize what is it that I have chosen to manifest. One finds within that the functional power of the role, that is the power of polarity. Do you follow what I mean? Because when one has discovered the power within, one also discovers the power without. Two powerful beings merging together understand the very concept of power to manifest. Do you understand? So in one sense, the creations within the binding are greater than the individual structures. Do you understand? If one, there are possibilities that one could delve into, but to express those in the the common framework is not beneficial for the whole. Is there another question?
That's
We've
interesting.
explored.
Yes. Excuse me. So within the polarity, then if we understand the concept of connection and letting go of the self and becoming the union, is that what you're talking about?
Of course. The union and unified. You understand the union is representative. Shall we say that one is, for this example, one is functionally a male body. One comes together and discovers, shall we say, the connection with a female body. The two bodies can emerge at the physical level. And if there is true connection, then the, shall we say, all the bodies will merge together. That is the emotional body, that is astral, and so on. The intellectual body with thoughts and practices and concepts, and one becomes a unified whole. And yet the masculine also identifies all feminine, because the value of the single proposal, that is the single person with them, represents all femininity, as does the other way. So when one is truly in love, one is in love with all opposites. One is in love with the merging of and the unification of all distinctions. Then one discovers power of the divine that is flowing through. And that is why one can always feel the love between true lovers. It radiates out, it uplifts others, it brings energy to others, and it transforms everything within its field. Do you understand what I mean? The fields of influence of individuals become a completed whole. That is, there is no polarity expressed. They are within balance and yet representative of the polars, the polar opposites. There is still the sense of masculine and feminine connected in balance in a powerful operation that one could call the spiritual marriage, the alchemical marriage.
Okay, that's amazing. So does it...
I want to say, for individuals to continue to hold this often causes difficulties. And all of the individual's shadows appear within that framework. So, shall we say, all challenges appear, all healing appears within the container of magic or alchemical balancing. So, shall we say, it is the ideal cauldron. Next thought.
So with that said, does the most powerful or divine expression of love, can it exist outside of just male-female connection? Can it exist within two beings who embrace each other's differences as well?
That is a question that it is difficult to answer that question without causing disturbance. You understand? In the present construction of society and the species at this, shall we call it, turning point in consciousness. There are so many considerations to take in. You understand, there are extremes in areas of societies that affect the whole, and as such, other extremes appear in other societies. Everything remains in balance, shall we say, or every chaotic expression has to be revisited in other areas of life. So shall we say everything needs to be explored in the self. So in terms of such conditions that is outside of the ability to merge as masculine and feminine expressions, that is at the physical level, there will be similar distortions at all levels of the being. That does not mean that there is not deep affections for many people of all genders. There can be deep, shall we say, love for one's children that are not party to one's, shall we say, merging in the physical body. That would be of significance. You understand, the children are the result of the initial connection. They are within the container, brought about through that harmony, connection. This is a challenging topic for humanity, and like all such topics, I tread with a certain degree of caution, because in terms of the present timing, humanity stands at a critical point. And the crisis of that is the result of distortions in the fields of polarities. So, shall we say, polarities have become so distinct as to create pressures in the fields of influence. Consciousness then is responding as it must. Shall we say, the planetary guardian is bringing its forces to realign within its field of influence. All of the other distortions within that field, in other words, shall we say, the climate as it changes, alters within its field, shall we say, the planet distribution of plants and resources, which alters the nature of the wild life and fauna, affects the flows of the oceans, and affects everything down to the individual human expression. All of it is within the authorship of the individual consciousness playing out. So shall we say, all distortions that you see are also reflected inside. And I want to say it is dependent on whether one, shall we say, takes sides or not. If one sees that it is the fault of someone else, then the distortion will also appear in one's own system.
Wow, that's important to note.
You understand then, because when one dives into the ocean, one is in the ocean. If one sees that the ocean is a unified whole and will, in the end, take care of itself. If humans want to create suffering for the planet, expect suffering in the human condition. As soon as one is attempting to find a commonality, one's compassion for others, one's graciousness, as I have spoken before. One treads in the world, leaving no mark, as it were, no footprint, as they say. That does not mean one does not engage, but one's footprint in the inner realms is not disturbing self, nor choosing sides. Understand spirit, divine consciousness is ultimately just, is ultimate power of the creation. All things have consequences in order, in direct order to the consciousness. In other words, every consequence is a teaching from the divine. And if humans were to recognize and honor the divine, they would not be looking for a savior outside of self, but to recognize they have been given a savior inside, that is the ability to discover the message, the lesson of consequences. Then all your disturbances, all your angers and resentments, all your physical difficulties, the illnesses, and so forth, are the consequence of some earlier decision. Then if one is living with minimal consequences, one is moving closer to the divine order. One does not have to shout it out, to preach to others. One is an example of alignment. One is an example of connection. One is an example of the power of the divine. And that is why love is connected to the divine. Consequences are divine love. How difficult it is to recognize that. Something more?
No, that's enough for today. Thank you, Mercredan. I think you've covered the whole range.
Then for a moment, for all those who see this, sit in your being. consider yourself for a moment. All of your ups and your downs, all of the things that you are. And know divine love fuels it all. The only necessary thing is to see its purpose, to move beyond the limitations brought about. It is divine love because even the individual never lost the connection to your divine origin. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Mercredan, and thank you all of you who joined us today. If you enjoyed this reading, please click the like button and subscribe if you'd like to keep updated. And if you're interested in learning more about our private channeling sessions, the link is in the description. We'll be here again in 3 more days where Libby, or 4 days probably, will be speaking about the collective consciousness and how collective consciousness shapes our reality, how reality or how collective fear contributes to global crisis, and how we can use collective consciousness to heal and encourage peace and unity. So that sounds very interesting, doesn't it? So be sure you make the next session, and if you don't, then enjoy listening to the post recording of it. We'll look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now.